Well, good morning. Good morning. You can hear my audio through the mic, though?
Yes.
No problem. Yeah. Well, I don't think we'll be going live today then for my first live stream here. I cannot seem to get the system audio to work. Well, I had to invest in some new technology to try and make all this streaming happen, and you gotta love when technology doesn't work. But how are we all doing out there? How was your weekend? Who wants to contribute here? Who had such a good weekend they just have to share? Nobody. Martin. Come on. That's got nothing? Your weekend was that bad? Stacy, what do you got?
Okay, I had a little bit of a crazy situation at an open house. I had an agent come in that thought it was listed with the previous agent and was still communicating with the previous agent with his investors. And I said, oh, no, that expired last week. I relisted it. They don't have a contract. And he was so confused because the other agent had actually been calling him that morning, telling him to go, giving him the combination of his old lockbox, which I already removed, and left him 3 messages to come pick up his lockbox. And there was a new lockbox because I kind of knew this was going to happen because the guy's been avoiding me.
I mean, do you think the agent literally doesn't know that it expired?
He either doesn't know. Yeah, I think it was kind of like a sketchy situation. The father had interviewed 4 months ago for the listing. He got the listing from these 2 sweet sisters that are kind of like oblivious to real estate. It is confusing and they're in different industries, but the father interviewed, got the listing, gave it to his 25-year-old son who has no clue, obviously, and didn't do a good job marketing or anything. But it's interesting because now the guy is calling saying we're putting in an offer, but I have I'm expecting 3 offers today at 1 p.m. They're due. But I said, I mean, the other agent's being really cool. He understands it's not listed with the other guy, it's listed with me. But I said, you need to, I mean, I don't know. It's a weird situation, but
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate for that past agent to just be kind of ignoring everything. There's a lot to kind of unravel here with regards to taking over an expired listing, how to maybe kind of work through the process to make sure it's not so bad like this. And then I want to briefly talk about how the commission part works because I don't think a lot of agents understand how most of these contracts are written. So I mean, as far as you're concerned, Stacy, in this situation, you're just working the property, and I don't know that he needs to be involved, or you need to continue to try and reach out to him, right? Just tell this agent it's your listing. You can check the MLS. If you want to submit an offer to me, and we'd happily present it and hopefully put a deal together, right? Like,
yeah.
is there anything that you're particularly struggling with this other guy just not being involved?
No, I just think he's immature and inexperienced and is just ignoring me, which is fine. It's a $40 lockbox. Like I'll just leave it on the porch. But that's the only reason I was calling him. I don't have anything to talk to him about.
Gotcha. So let's just talk about the transition here. I mean, one of the ways that I've always approached the expired situation is trying to understand that last agent either they did a horrible job
Horrible. Yeah.
and you're right and were not involved at all and aren't experienced with taking listings, probably didn't market it well, or right? That agent did do a pretty darn good job. They're a good agent. We've all, taken a listing that we didn't sell, or if you've been in the business for a little bit, you've taken a listing, it didn't sell, but you marketed it right, right? And maybe you've got an unrealistic seller. Maybe you've got it overpriced, and the seller just wasn't willing to budge on their pricing. So it can be very frustrating for us as agents when we feel like we've done our job, and now all of a sudden another agent's coming in. So a lot of the times, the conversation that I'm having with an agent previously, if I'm trying to get an expired listing, is, hey, look, what information can you get me about this listing before I take it? Right? Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to be the second person to take this and not sell it and waste all my time and energy and money and all that stuff. So can we work out something? Can I understand kind of what the hot buttons are Maybe I'm even willing to pay a referral fee. Maybe it's not a normal referral fee, right? If somebody hands me a client, maybe I'm going to give 25, 30% for a good referral. In this case, maybe just for a little bit of information. Hey, what are kind of the sticking points? Maybe it's a 10%, maybe it's a 15% referral, but something so that I can kind of move the ball along and know what I'm getting into before I get myself into it. Right. So it doesn't always have to be a difficult relationship with the previous agent. Maybe you're actually working together. And that way, they're the agent, the previous agent's getting something out of it. They've already wasted 3 to 6 months of their time, maybe more, some marketing dollars, right? So can we just have a good relationship with that agent? Lauren, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, so my thought just here is, right, like, there's more chance than not that that other agent isn't really going to want to communicate with you, right? I think that offering up that small percentage, hey, maybe it was just a bad situation, right? Let's work together. Let's get this done. I still want you to get something. You've had time and effort. More likely, the conversation with the seller in that instance is kind of asking a lot of questions, because there is likely something that they did like that they did, right? So a lot of people go into expires with, I'm going to do this better, I'm going to do this, that, and another thing. And it kind of more so than not, when I've heard them, sounds like a bashing of the previous agent, which we kind of want to avoid, because maybe they did like that agent, right? And a lot of things that they did, but there was just something.
No, they
that
didn't like the
changed.
agent. He was terrible.
Okay. Well, just more so general, right? So, like, questions. What did you like about the previous experience that you had listing? What didn't you like about the previous experience you had when you were on market? Just to get, more understanding there.
Yeah, I think it's all set. I think they're good. They're happy. I went in and redid the whole place. It was a great open house, 2 days, crazy weekend. They're getting 3 offers today that I've been told verbally. So it is going for it. I was just worried about that kid's just, I guess he's just oblivious to not, like telling people to keep going to the house, and that his lockbox was still on the door. It was kind of funny. It was just silly, but it's no big deal.
It's a great share. The other thing that comes up with these, I want to make sure everybody understands, is how the commissions work with an expired listing, right? So I've got a property listed. I'm going to use, I don't know, we're going to say the commission that I listed it for was X. A buyer comes along and we're trying to structure a deal. And the seller realizes that I'm at the end of my listing contract and kind of fumbles the deal, so that thinking, hey, maybe I can get this to go under agreement and not have to pay you. Right? It's at the end. I don't want to have to pay the X% commission. I know we've got a ready, willing, and able buyer. I'll just let it expire and sell to this. To this buyer. Now, obviously, our contracts protect us. There's a clause in there for how long after, if that buyer were to come to the table and the deal is put together. Typically you're looking at about 180 days where you should still get a commission. Most of the contracts, if you read them, say unless that property gets relisted. Right? So now, if another agent comes along and lists that property, doesn't matter that the buyer came during your period. That new agent is due the commission on that. The part that I want to make sure everybody understands is there is typically in that contract a differential clause, meaning, let's say, I've got it for X and the new agent took it for X minus 2%. Okay. So, and this is what's preventing the buyer and seller from doing here is they just list with somebody for, $100, $500, something flat fee to avoid the percentage commission. So now you would actually be due, and again, you got to file a lawsuit. You're going to have to go get this money, but you would be due the difference between those two numbers. So prevents them from just relisting to say, oh no, I don't owe you a commission. I relisted this property with another agent. Right. So just want to make sure everybody kind of understands, read your contracts that you're having your sellers sign and understand how these things work, especially as we're getting into a period here where stuff is going to sit a little bit. Right. KB.
Yeah, I would think also in an instance like that, you would have to be able to prove procuring cause, right? Because just because somebody contacted you when the property was listed under you doesn't necessarily that you would qualify for procuring costs, because it's not necessarily, it's who did the most work, right? So technically, if they contacted me and I said, yeah, go open my lockbox, but if I got to a house and another agent were to show me that property and it was listed by somebody else, like let's say I went and contacted the new listing agent and that person showed me that property, then technically you would not have procuring cause. So I think it gets really, really gray and really, really sticky when you're trying to combat or fight for these commissions when you're not in contract, because nothing is as clear as it seems. I just want everyone to realize that, right? If you're going to go try to fight for commission, it's almost always going to cost you money.
Yeah. It's the same thing when you're battling for these deposits. Nothing is easy to get, but understand how the contracts work, right? If you start to have a negotiation with that buyer while it's listed under you, I think you're good, right? If the buyer just viewed it, and if you started the conversation about writing an offer, they're thinking about it, right? I think you're going to have a good case. Now, are you going to pursue it? You're going to go after it? At least what we're trying to do maybe is just put the fear in the seller to say, hey, look, here's the contract reads. Like you can let this thing expire. You can try and list with your uncle and try and cut me out, but like I'm going to pursue this. Put a letter together, find out who the attorneys are that are representing the deal, and see if you can get yourself involved. So we've had some that's just we've gotten completely cut out and the agent did not want to pursue it. We've had others where we've gotten paid the full commission. So it can go a lot of different ways. Who has any other questions about taking over an expired listing or going after expired listings or the previous agent, or any questions around that? Any experience shares around what you guys have had happen in these scenarios? That just might be, hey, I had a property expire and then this happened, or I took over an expired listing and this happened. Be careful of this. Anything coming to mind? Maybe.
I think know who owns the photos. I feel like that's something that comes up pretty often, where someone will take an expired listing and they'll use the photos from the previous listing, and you might not have rights to those photos if the seller doesn't own them, which a lot of times they don't. So if you're going to take a listing and you plan on reusing photos, you're going to need to get consent to do that from usually the photographer.
Yeah, typically what I've seen is some sort of a payment is going to happen to allow that to happen, right? We got to get the photographer to release it, and we got to get the agent who paid for it to release it. So, if they paid $1,000 for the photos and the videos, maybe they're willing to give it to you for $500, $700, recoup something out of the deal. Anybody having a share around that? Around specifically that process or how you worked it? Or Stacy, in your case, all new photo and video, correct?
Yes, all new everything.
Yeah. Did you have another comment though?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that. Always brand new photos. I don't want anyone else's anything, and just detach and start over brand new. But like we redid it, a lot of paint, we did a lot of everything. So just kind of updated. And I don't think we have access to anyone else's photos, right? Whoever pays for it owns it.
No, they can be released. Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. Yeah, they can be released. You can pay for it. You typically at a discount from what originally was out there. Because sometimes you do have high quality photo and video, like no need to go and reshoot it. Or let's say the property got photographed, in the summer. Place looked unbelievable. You're taking the property over in January. We got snow and dirt and sand, and it looks horrible, right? We want those summer photos on the relist.
So all of my photos have all the snow and all, so it kind of captures it as in right now. And the previous agent's photos, I said at the listing appointment, I'm like, I don't like his photos anyway, so I'm doing all brand new photos. I like a photographer that's in this area and his drones. They didn't have any drones, so that is good. Something good to remember though, like if the pictures are phenomenal, if it looks awful, but I think it actually photographed really well with all the snow.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's maybe you just need the shot of the pool, right? Or you need the shot of the backyard, or you want an exterior photo without, right? So maybe you're just paying, a few $100s to get those couple of assets instead of getting the whole media package. Any other questions regarding this? Good. Great share. Who else has got something going on in a deal or a question that's kind of rumbling around in your head? One of the major headlines that came out on Friday was the new TCPA law, which was supposed to go into effect today. It actually got delayed on Friday. So I think it's a good point of conversation today for us to understand what did that rule mean? How should we be changing our attitude towards consent from consumers, et cetera? So my understanding of what was going to happen, and again, this did not happen. It's been delayed potentially till as late as January of 2026. Could happen sooner that it goes into effect. We don't know what's going to happen. But basically what I believe it was the FCC that brought this on, was trying to do is they're trying to prevent all the automated and robo dialers and text messages, right? Without prior written consent, one-to-one from that lead that we've got. Right. So a lot of our text systems here on our team, we are using automated stuff to do lead follow-up. We've got AI that is working that. And what this law would have prevented was that AI from reaching out unless we had consent. Okay, so if this law goes into effect, then any leads that you generate, you're going to have to get some written consent. So, some of you guys are just working off a spear, but you're doing open houses, right? If this law goes into effect and you want to do open house leads, we really got to look at digitally signing everybody in. When they're digitally signing in, having the right consent forms that when they're signing, that they are agreeing to be contacted not only by you but by automated systems post the open house. So that's the kind of language that you're going to want to get into an open house sign-in form. But this didn't happen, so we can continue to go about our business the way it did. But I think you should be preparing for this, because I think they are going to get this into play. I think the only reason that it got a little bit delayed is some of the people were standing up and say, hey, wait a second, you didn't give us enough time here. We understand, we will put systems in place, but this is coming at us too quick. We need more time. So they're buying themselves a little bit of time, but I do think this is going to happen. So does anybody have any questions around this topic? Do we understand it? All right. Obviously, current rules like do not call list, we cannot be calling those individuals. You can't, in theory, you cannot just be cold calling anybody. Right. The reason why kind of the expired is an exception, and why can you call an expired, right? You don't have consent from that person to reach out to them. No different than, a random person in a neighborhood, right? The reason that you've got an exception is there's an assumption there that your services could be needed. Right. So if there is a situation where services could be needed, it kind of trumps these laws that say you can't just cold call people. Right. So that's why if you've got a storm and you've got roof damage, right, it's okay for roofers to be calling and saying, hey, or even texting and saying, hey, do you need roof services? But in general, you couldn't just be hammering people with phone calls and text messages saying, hey, do you need your roof replaced? Right? If that's under the current situations, even manual, you still need consent to reach out to people. Any questions around current laws, what this future law, what you should be doing moving forward? We feel like we've got a good feel for this. Anybody want to add some color? I know there's a bunch of webinars that happened. Maybe something that you learned on a webinar that you might want to share. KB.
Yeah, I think one of the big points that they brought up, I took two different webinars, and one of them was the YLOPO one. And I think that most of the larger companies that are taking like leads in and that are trying to engage prospects, pretty much already have something in place, that they're gathering some sort of consent. But the biggest concern was for people that are just purchasing lists. So like some agents will buy Red X lists, or they'll just buy certain lists from prospecting companies, and there's no consent there at all. And that's the big red flag one. So if you guys are purchasing lists, this is definitely something that you're going to want to make sure you're paying attention to and considering what you're going to implement to follow these guidelines when they come out.
And just to be clear, it's my understanding this is for automated, right? So if you wanted to buy an expired list, if you just wanted to get a list of expireds every day, right? You're good with that, right? Those people need your services. It's one-to-one communication. It's not automated. You'd be able to reach out to those people. Okay, so that would be okay. Buying a list of a neighborhood and calling through it, not okay, even in the current situation, right? Even if it's one-to-one, right? You're not supposed to do that. There is no. Now, I think how do people try and get around this is, hey, I'm not calling about my services. I'm calling to let you know about the open house that I'm doing on Sunday, right? So I'm actually just trying to add value, right? So that is permitted under the current laws. Is in theory, you weren't trying to sell any services to these people. You're just notifying them about something that's going on in their neighborhood. So, are you going to get called out on this stuff? I don't know. I've never heard of anybody getting called out if that's what you're really doing, right? So if you were going to do the dial around the neighborhood, right, just you're not selling your services. Now, if they ask, obviously now they've engaged and now you can sell your services. We think we're pretty good there. We're making sense. Good. What else? We got time for one more topic. What is on your mind this Monday morning? We can continue to do some of the inspection stuff. So why don't we finish up with that? The last one, or not, I've got a bunch still to go, but the next one on my list, I should say, is water tests. I don't think we've really hit that too hard. I know we've had some people talk about not cleaning the faucet before a water test was taken. And so now we've got contamination on water. But anybody want to just share anything else regarding a water test that they did, or we talked about the well. We haven't talked about the water itself. Anybody want to share anything around the water itself? Right? Typically, it's you getting a container, filling it up. They're going to give you instruction on what you got to do. You're bringing it to some sort of a local facility to get a test. And typically, this is being done in coordination with a well test, right? Or on a property that has well. But I just wanted to open it up. We didn't get specifically into the water or water treatment systems that have been put into place afterwards. Anybody have any shares around that? Lori.
So sometimes, if you're going to be getting a water test done and the property is vacant, a lot of folks don't realize you really need to let that water run a while before taking your sample, because nobody's been there. So like the pipes are kind of sitting, everything's sitting. So I've had instances and heard of instances where, a person goes in, just turns the water on quick, takes the sample, sends it off, and it comes back all screwed up. And then you do a second test, and then somebody finally realizes, let that run for like 20 minutes solid before you take the sample, and then it comes back completely fine. So kind of like rule of thumb, especially if it's vacant, let it run for like 20 minutes before you take the sample, just to get everything kind of cleared out a little bit if nobody's there. Just kind of like a little trick that I've ran into getting stumped in the past, by it being vacant and sitting.
Yeah. And it came up when we were talking about the well stuff. It's you got to be careful with it just right out of the rip. And when we talked about that, I remember and this was new to me, that in theory, you've got that first draw. I think Meg was the one that made it talked about this, where you draw right away. You're actually testing the pipes in the house when you do that. Right? The pipes in the house are, could be in theory contaminating your water. So I know we installed an underwater kind of filtration system in our house. Um, I don't know. I mean, the water seems to taste pretty much the same. It requires me to change. There's 3 different tubes. I'm changing one every like 6 months, one every year, and maybe one every 3 months. Um, but it's keeping the wife happy, and I feel better about the water I'm drinking. We got our own little spout, so you're not filtering all the water in your house. So the water that we're using for the dishwasher and for the shower and for just cleaning pots and pans or whatever is completely separate. So we've got a separate faucet in the kitchen that is just for drinking. So we're filling our kids' sports water bottles out of that, and it just makes it a little bit quicker than maybe having a Brita or something in the fridge. So that system seems to be working pretty well for us. Anybody else coming up across any other water systems or installed anything due to a water test that you had? Tracy.
Yeah, I finally got the UV system installed for the one in Enfield, which was fantastic. But I was thinking, just making sure that the current owners who never had a well before, I'd let them know, make sure that you're in touch with the company that comes. I think it was Culligan. Make sure you're in touch with them to make sure the filters are being changed in the house and that you have enough, salt in the system. Just make sure that they're really educated since they're new to well. I tried to be a resource. I also direct them back to their home inspector and to, the company that's going to be, giving them the treatments in the future to make sure they got clean filters, because a clean filter is going to be a problem if you don't take care of that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And this is the kind of stuff that I was hoping we could get into today, because we covered the well thing pretty good, and maybe even a little bit about the water, but these systems after are really, really important. Anybody else have a well and just want to talk about the filtration system that they've got and what the maintenance looks like on it? I've never actually lived in a house with a well, so I've never had to do that. Lauren.
So we just moved into a house this last year, and it does have a well. And we actually really knew nothing about it either. And down in our basement, we have one of these. There's 3 large canisters that do filter the water and soften the water and things like that. And we're actually going through right now, because it's not functioning right, the process of learning if we're going to fix it or need to replace it at this point. Um, I heard mention the salt already, so we know that like the salt is empty in this thing, and it should be there. So I'll probably have some more to share on this as we go through replacing and learning more about it. But like you have, we also have in our kitchen a separate faucet that filters just for drinking water as well.
Anybody else want to share? I'm assuming the 3 containers is probably pretty standard. There's probably 3 different things that you're filtering for. Um, and that's why you've got the multiple containers like that. So I don't know anybody. Adam, go ahead, bud.
Hey, I can just share our experience with our Airbnb here. So it's a very basic well. It's got a 2 canister system. It has these white pleated filters that essentially just pop in. I don't know, they're like $30 each. And basically, when you need to change them based on the water pressure in the house. So this is less of sanitizing the water or cleaning the water. This is just really filtering the water to keep sediment out of your shower heads and water faucets and spigots. But it's the basic system that's going to be installed. So at minimum, you're always going to have it. Ours is blue. So it comes with this special rinse. You unturn it, you take out the old filter. It's gross. It looks like a copper color. You put the new filter in and your pressure will like double just by doing that. So obviously, if the house is used, you got a lot of people in the house, it's going to need to be done sooner. But I would say on average, we're doing ours every 3 to 4 months, depending on how much it gets used as a rental. So that's the minimum standard.
Yeah, Excuse me. So I just did a kind of a quick chat GPT thing. So it seems like the sediment filter is kind of your baseline. Activated carbon filters would be, your next line of defense here. So this is going to remove chlorine, your volatile organic compounds, pesticides, herbicides, bad tastes. You could do a reverse osmosis system that's going to remove a wide range of contaminants, including arsenic, nitrates, heavy metals, and dissolved solids. So I think that's an even higher level. And then, like Tracy had mentioned, these UV filters, they kill bacteria, viruses, and other microorganisms. So looks like you can add all kinds of filters here: iron and manganese filters, a water softener to remove the hardness caused by calcium and magnesium, acid neutralizers, they're going to raise the pH of acidic water to prevent corrosion of pipes and fixtures, nitrate removal filters, arsenic specific filters, and then there's even specialized more sulfur filters, tannin filters. So I think really understanding what is it that your system is struggling with, and it looks like a lot of these systems can be adapted, and we're just going to take the water and put it through as many different filters as we can before it gets to what you're drinking. So hopefully we learned a little bit about water and drink and potability here this morning. But we are over, so let me finish up with a share here of what we have for learning opportunities today. 100 listing appointment challenge. Fortune is in the follow-up. Social media and marketing mastermind today. CEO Connect, the sales accelerator, mastering the buyer's presentation. So 6 different live trainings today. Take something, learn something, come back here tomorrow and tell us about it. So hope you guys have a great Monday. Appreciate you all jumping on this morning and spending some time with us. And we'll do it again tomorrow morning. Take care.
Thank you.